Okay, so number one, let's look at this. Suppose we had x squared minus 2x minus 48. And you want to factor this. So first of all, notice it is in descending order. So you have your x squared listed first, you have your x term listed second, and then your constant is listed third. So it is in descending order. So many times you want it in descending order. It does help you to factor it easier. The other thing you need to recognize is that the coefficient of x squared is what number? 1. That's the easy kind to factor. Coefficient of x squared is 1. The other thing you got to remember is that regardless of whether the coefficient of x squared is 1 or not 1, you have to look for GCF. What's the GCF? 1. GCF is 1. So since the GCF is 1, I'm going directly to the two binomials. Okay? All right, and remember, the first part's easy because we said, remember, using the idea of FOIL. So if you look at F first, remember the F is the product of the first terms. So what's the only possibility to get a product of x squared? X and x. Okay? All right, now we go to the last. So we went to the first and then went to the last next. So the last, you're asking yourself, I need two terms whose product is negative 48. Now, the reason why this was easy, whenever the x squared term has a coefficient of 1, whenever the leading coefficient is 1, the way you want to factor it is to ask yourself this. I want two numbers whose product is negative 48 and whose sum is what? Negative 2, the middle term. All right, so what two numbers do you think would work?
Negative 8 and 6.
Negative 8 and 6? Y'all agree? No, not 8 and negative 6. Because what do you get when you add 8 and negative 6?
2.
You get a positive 2. You want a negative 2. Okay? All right. So it is 8 and negative 6. I'm sorry, negative 8 and 6, right? All right. So that product is negative 48. And that sum is negative 2. And remember, since the last sign's negative, the only way you can get a negative is as one's positive and the other one's what? Negative. That's the only way you can get a product that's negative. All right, since the first terms are the same, they're identical, it does not matter where you put the negative 8 or the positive 6. It does not matter. So you can say x minus 8 times x plus 6. All right, now before you go 1, notice you got to make sure you get that negative 2x, so just check. When we do that trial and error in a little while, we're going to have to check. You got to check that middle term. What's the outer? The outer? 6x. What's the inner? And when I add them up, do I get? Which is what you wanted. So there's your answer. So the answer is x minus 8 times x plus 6. Again, the order in which you multiplied does not matter. So you could have said x plus 6 times x minus 8. So that's what we did last week. Number 2, suppose you had this one, x squared minus 7xv plus 10v squared. Now this time you have two variables. So one of the worksheets you have to turn in today involved two variables. Remember that? Okay, so that's one of the worksheets you have to turn in. It involved two variables. Notice, though, that the coefficient of x squared is still what number? 1. Coefficient of x squared is 1. What is the GCF? GCF is also 1. So that's the easy kind. So I'm going to go directly to the two binomials. Just like we did before, you look at FOIL. You're going to use that same idea, FOIL, FOIL, when we do the trial and error in a little while. So do the F first. So what two terms multiplied together is x squared? There's only one possibility. What is it? X and x. And I'll go to the last. I need two terms whose product is a positive 10v squared. So let's just deal with the coefficient for right now. So I need the product to be a 10, right? But I need the sum. Now, be careful when we do the trial and error in a little while. That idea is going to be a little bit different. But since the coefficient of x squared is 1, you want two numbers whose product is 10 and whose sum is what? Negative 7. What do you think works? Negative 5 and negative 2, right? If you try something else, see if you get that product to be positive 10 and that sum to be negative 7. 10 and 2 won't work. I'm sorry, 5 and 2. 5 and 2 won't work because that sum is what? A positive 7. I need a negative 7. So it has to be this one right here. All right, it does not matter. Since the first terms are the same, it does not matter whether you say x minus 5 or x minus 2 first. It does not matter. All right, now, I'm still missing something. I'm missing the v. Because look at the last. If you leave it like this, and it is a common mistake people make because they rush through this. But what's a negative 5 times a negative 2? A positive 10. That's not what I wanted. What did I want? Positive 10v squared. So I need to put what here? V's. All right, so make sure you think like that. All right, now let's check the outer and the inner. What's the outer? Put in alphabetical order. What's the outer? Negative 2xv, alphabetical order. What's the inner? When I add them up, what do I get? Which is what you wanted. So there's your answer. Okay? All right, number 3. All right, number 3, suppose you had 6x cubed plus 6x squared minus 432x. So 6x cubed plus 6x squared minus 132x. Now use your calculator to help you with this. What do you think the GCF is? Is it just 6? 6x, right? GCF is 6x. And it is in descending order already. X cubed, x squared, x. So, but the GCF is 6x. Remember, if the GCF is something other than 1, then what you want to do now is factor out the 6x. So you want to say that's going to be 6x times, and you got to fill in this parentheses. How many terms did you start out with? So how many terms should you have inside the parentheses? 3. So use the distributive property. 6x times what is 6x cubed? X squared. 6x times what is a positive 6x squared? Plus x. We all agree? And then 6x times what is a negative 432x? Negative, not 72x, negative 72. All right, so that's where I'm at. Now I'm going to try to see if I can factor this trinomial. So I'm going to go off to the side.
Why do I have x?
Because x times x is x squared. This is not an x squared. Okay? All right. All right. All right, so let's see if we can factor this to two binomials. FOIL again. So what are the only possibilities that are going to go into that first term? X and x. All right, now the last. So I need two numbers, two terms, whose product is a negative 72 and whose sum is what? 1. That's a positive 1x, right? What would work? Positive 9, negative 8? Is that correct? Yeah. Because 9 plus a negative 8 is a positive 1. And when I multiply them, I get a negative 72. So does it matter if I say x plus 9 first or x minus 8 first? Does not matter. So if you want to say x minus 8 times x plus 9, that's fine. But be careful. In the blank, many students will say this. That's not the factorization of the original. That's the factorization of this. What did that student forget to do? Bring down the GCF. So it's 6x times this. All right. Now again, when we do the trial and error, you will need to check the outer and the inner. What's the outer? 9x. What's the inner? And when I add them up, what do I get? 1x, which is what you wanted. Okay. All right, so that was a quick review. Okay, now what we're going to do now, notice that when I factored number 1 and when I factored number 2 and when I factored number 3 here, this one right here, that was the form ax squared plus bx plus c, where a was equal to what number? 1. Okay, so if a is 1, that's the easy kind. Now we're going to look at a situation where a is not 1. A is not 1. Okay, so we're going to factor trinomials of this form where a does not equal 1. A does not equal 1. Okay? All right, so let's look at the first one. I have 7x squared plus 46x plus 24. 7x squared plus 46x plus 24. All right, now, first of all, make sure it's in descending order. Does help. Is this in descending order? Yeah. Yes, it is. X squared, x, and your constant. Remember, descending order is where you start from the largest exponent to the constant. So my exponent here is 2, my exponent here is 1, and there's my constant. All right, just like before, what's the GCF? GCF is 1, right? Okay. So now I'm going directly to the two binomials. Now this is what we're going to use now is called trial and error. Now that's coming from section 13.3. 13.3 if you're looking at your book. Trial and error. The next section we're going to look at, so there's another way to do this, so you need to know both ways. The more tools you have, the better you become. The other method is called the AC method, and that's in the next section, but you got to know both. All right, now we're going to use FOIL just like before, the previous problem. And so remember, when we did the previous problem, the first thing we went to was the F part. So we filled out that first part right here, the first term. So F times F better give me 7x squared. Well, 7 is prime, so there's only one possibility for that to happen. So that means that one has to be what? 7x, and the other one has to be x. There's only one possibility. It did not matter where you put the 7x or the x. All right, now just like before, once I did the F, where did I go next in terms of FOIL? The last. So that was that last terms. Same thing here. So the question is, what two things multiplied together will give me what? Positive 24. Now here's where it differs now. In the previous problem, and we only did that because the coefficient of x squared was 1. In the previous problem, we asked ourselves, all right, what two numbers will give me a product of negative 48 and whose sum is what? Negative 2x. That's the way we did it. But I want you to notice something. We also checked negative 2x by doing the outer and the inner, didn't we? In all these cases, I checked to make sure I did get the middle term by doing the outer and the inner. The outer and the inner gives me negative 2x. The outer and the inner gives me what? Negative 7x. The outer and the inner, I'm going to cover this up. The outer and the inner gave me what? Positive x. That's the idea you're going to use here. So here's the idea. So I want the product to be a positive 24, correct? Now when we did this right here, we found two numbers whose product was 48, correct? All right, same thing here. So give me two numbers whose product is 24 and list all of them. 6 and 4, 8 and 3, 1 and 24, one more pair, 12 and 2, or 2 and 12, right? You all agree? All right, now, no one mentioned, though, this. No one mentioned -6, -4. Is that product still positive 24? Yes. No one mentioned -8, -3. No one mentioned -120, -24. And no one mentioned -2, -12. But the products are still positive 24, right? So in some cases, that is going to matter. But I want you to think about something. When I look at the outer and the inner, just like in the first three problems and just like we did last week, when I look at the outer and the inner, I want that sum to be the middle term, right? What is the sign of the middle term? Positive. Well, what do you think that means about these then? If the middle sign's positive, and I either have to use two positives or two negatives, which one do you think you would have to use? Two positives. You're not going to use two negatives because a negative and a negative plus a negative number is what kind of number? Negative. A negative times a negative is a positive. What's a -3 plus a -5? A -8. So I'm going to ask you again. A negative number plus a negative number is what kind of number? Negative. All right. So both of these have to be what kind of signs? Positive. So I know I won't use any of these. Okay? So that's some things you're going to have to look at also as you go through this. And as you go through the trial and error, we're going to look at things like that. So the last sign is what kind of number? Positive. In order to get a positive, they both have to be the same sign. So either they're both positives or they're both what? Negatives. I know in this case I couldn't have them both being negatives because my middle sign was what? Positive. All right, so I have to use these. Okay, now when you do this, when you do the trial and error, you want to try, notice how many pairs do you see here? Pairs. 4. It's not always true, but you always want to try first the two numbers closer together than the number line. So if you look at all these pairs here, which pair is closer together on the number line? 6 and 4? Okay. So I'm going to try this first. If it doesn't work, I'll try something else. That's trial and error. So let's try 6 and 4. So I'm going to put the +6 here and the +4 here and see if that works. Okay? All right. Now, don't stop there because some of you think, all right, it's going to work. I'm done. No. What have I not looked for? I did the F already. 7x times x is what? X squared. I did the last already. 6 times 4 is what? 24. What have I not looked for yet? The middle term. And you're going to get the middle term by looking at the outer and the what? The inner. That's where the outer and the inner comes in. Well, what is the outer? 28x. 7x times 4 is 28x. What's the inner? When I add them up, what do I get? 34x? Is that what I wanted? No. So that means that this is not going to be my answer. Trial and error. Okay? So let's try a different pair. I still know that for 7x squared there's only one possibility. What is it? 7x and x. I'm still going to use it. Okay? Now, still deal with the two numbers close together in the number line. What two numbers are close together in the number line? No. What two numbers are close together in the number line? What two numbers here are close together in the number line? 6 and 4. No. Okay, listen. We did it one way. Now we're going to switch them and see if it works. Okay? Trial and error. If it doesn't work, try something else. I don't mean try something else here. I mean try something else, maybe switching these around. Okay? All right. So instead of saying 7x plus 6, let's try what? 7x plus 4, and then x what? Plus 6. You're still going to check what's 7x times x? 7x squared. What's 4 times 6? 24. Now let's do the outer and the inner. What's the outer? 42x. What's the inner? What do I get when I add them up? Is that what I wanted? So there's your answer. So the answer will be 7x plus 4 times x plus 6, or someone else could have said x plus 6 times what? 7x plus 4. Does not matter. Okay? Trial and error. That's trial and error. You got to know both ways. Trial and error and AC method we're going to do Thursday. All right, number 2. All right, number 2, suppose you had this. Three p squared minus 2p minus 5. 3p squared minus 2p minus 5. You still want to factor this. Notice that it's not the easy kind, because the coefficient of p squared is not 1. What's the coefficient of p squared? 3. But it's still prime, so that's a good thing. 3 is prime. Like the previous one, 7 is a prime number. 3 is a prime number, so that's the easy kind when it's prime. And I say it's the easy kind when it's prime. First of all, what's the GCF? I forgot to mention that. What's the GCF? 1. GCF is 1. So then I'm going to go directly to the two binomials. Now, 3 is prime, so that means this. That means there's only one possibility for f and f. 3p and what? P. It does not matter where you put the 3p or the p. It does not matter. If you want to put the 3p in the first parentheses, that's fine. All right, now, so that takes care of the f part of FOIL. Once you do the f, where do you jump to next? The last. So that means I want to ask myself, I need this product right here. I need two terms whose product is equal to what number? No, not 5. Negative 5, good. So negative 5. This time it's negative. So let's think about two numbers whose product is negative. Now, 5's prime, so that's an easy kind as well. Give me two numbers whose product is negative. Negative 5, I'm sorry. Negative 1, 5, or positive 1 and what? Negative 5. That's it, right? That's it. Okay? All right. Let's try the first pair first. Let's do that first. Negative 1 and 5. And just put them somewhere in the parentheses. You're going to check. If it doesn't work, you try something else. That's trial and error. So in other words, I'm going to put the negative 1 with the 3p, and I'm going to put the positive 5 with the p. So in other words, I'm saying that I think the answer is 3p minus 1 times p plus 5. But I got to check to make sure that's correct. So my f is okay. 3p times p is 3p squared. My L is okay. Negative 1 times 5 is a negative 5. Now I've got to check the outer and the inner, because the outer and the inner has to equal what? The middle term. What is the outer here? 15p. What is the inner? Negative 1p. When I add them up, what do you get? 14p. That's not what you wanted. So that did not work. Maybe switching the negative 1 and the 5. Let's try that. So before we go to the next pair, let's finish off the first pair. Let's exhaust it. So let's go back and do the p's again. So 3p and p, right? So instead of saying 3p minus 1, let's say 3p what? Plus 5, and then p what? Minus 1. All right, let's check it and see if it works. Trial and error. My f and L is still okay. The only thing I got to do is check the outer and the inner. What's the outer? Negative 3p. What's the inner? When I add them up, what do I get? No, not negative 2p. Positive 2p. Is that what I wanted? No. What did I want though? Negative. So you see how I got the 2p? The only difference is that sign. If the only difference is the sign, then that means all you gotta do is change the signs of the parentheses. So the answer should be what? So that didn't work. So the answer should be what? 3p minus 5 times p what? Plus 1. But again, check to make sure the outer is what? 3p. The inner is what? When you add them up, what do you get? And that's what you wanted. So there's the answer. So the answer is 3p minus 5 times p plus 1. So someone could have said 3p minus 5 times p plus 1, or p plus 1 times 3p minus 5. Okay? All right, number 3. All right, number 3, suppose you had 3n squared minus 8n plus 4. 3n squared minus 8n plus 4. All right. That's not the easy kind because n squared does not have a coefficient of 1, but it is prime. 3 is prime, so that is somewhat okay. But 4 is not prime. All right, so we're going to talk about that. All right, so what's the GCF? GCF is not 4. GCF is 1. The 4 does not go to 3 evenly. So the GCF is 1, so I'm going to go directly to the two binomials. And then FOIL. So let's do the F first. The F part is easy. What's going to be the F part? 3n and n. All right, now let's talk about the last. So I want two terms whose product is positive 4, right? All right, so let's think about that. So there's only there's 1 and 4, and there's 2 and 2, right? But there's also negative 1 and what? Negative 4, and negative 2 and what? Negative 2. Y'all agree? Now, remember our discussion in number 1. So the last sign's positive, so that means that the signs have to be the same, which I have them listed here. Which signs do you think you're going to fool with?
Negative.
The negative, because the middle sign's what? Negative. So the only way you can get a negative is to add two negatives together. So a negative plus a negative is a negative. Not two positives, because a positive plus a positive is what kind of number? Positive. All right. Now, remember a while ago we said we're going to always try the numbers close together in the number line. So which of these two pairs, so I'm not going to use the positive, of these two pairs here, which one do you want to try? Negative 2 and negative 2? The numbers close together in the number line first. Okay, that's what we said. So I'm going to put negative 2, just like this, right? Okay. Now, at some point, it's going to get easy enough through practice that you'll know which one right away, not always, but which one right away would work. So for some of you may have noticed that the negative 1 and negative 4 would work. But we're just going through the discussion, because that's what some of you will go through. So the F and the L are okay. What is it I have not checked? The outer and the inner. The outer and inner better add up to be what? Negative 8. All right, let's check it. What is the outer? What's the inner? What do I get when I add them up? So that does work, right? The other one would not have worked. All right, so we got that one real quickly. All right, number 4. All right, suppose in number 4 we had this. We had 15n squared minus 27n minus 6. So 15n squared minus 27n minus 6. All right. Is it in descending order? Yes, it's descending order. What's the GCF? 3. Good. GCF this time is 3. So let's factor out the 3. So we get 3 times what? 5n squared. What else? Minus 9n minus 2. And always check yourself. 3 times 5n is 15n squared. 3 times a negative 9n is a negative 27n. 3 times a negative 2 is a negative 6. Now I'm going to go off to the side. I'm going to try and factor this trinomial. Okay, 2 binomials. The first, then we're going to do trial and error again. So FOIL, FOIL. The F is okay. The F is the easy kind because 5 is prime. There's only one possibility. What is it? 5 and an n. And again, it didn't matter whether you put the 5 in the first one or the n in the first one. It does not matter. Now we go to the L. So I need 2 numbers whose product is what? Negative 2. So let's think about 2 numbers whose product is negative 2. Positive 1, negative 2, or what? Negative 1 or positive 2. Right? It's only possibilities. All right. Which one do you want to try first? Pick one. One, positive 1, negative 2. All right. So let's say I'm just putting some numbers in. So let's say I put the one with the plus 5 and the negative 2 with the n. All right. Put them in. But you got to check. So you're saying you think this trinomial can be factored as these 2 binomials. All right. Well, let's check. What's the outer? What's the inner? When I add them up, what do I get? Negative 9. Is that what you wanted? Yeah. That worked right away. But what's the answer, though? Don't forget, you have to, it's 3, right? Don't forget the GCF. 3 times what? Times n minus 2. Right. And again, you could have said 3 times n minus 2 times 5n plus 1. So always put the GCF at the front. Okay. All right. Now, when we do number 5, I'm going to do a little bit different than what we did here, and you'll see what it is I'm going to do different, but it does help to think about it that way as well. All right, so here's number 5. We have 6x squared plus 5x minus 6. Descending order, what's the GCF? 1. So I'm going to directly to the 2 binomials. Okay? All right, now this time the coefficient of x squared is not prime. 6 is not a prime number. So we got to try we got to try different possibilities for 6. If something doesn't work, I try something else. So for 6x squared, what are the possibilities for this first times first to have a product of 6x squared? 3x comma 2x or 1x comma 6x, right? Which one do you want to try? 3 and 2. Put the numbers close together on the number line. Doesn't always work, but try that first. 3x, 2x. So far my F is okay for FOIL. Once you do the F, you jump to the what? The L, the last. So I want 2 terms whose product this time is what? Negative 6. All right, well, there are several possibilities. Remember, it's negative now, so there's several possibilities like 1 and what else? Negative 6. A negative 1 and what else? Positive 6. 2 and what else? Negative 3. Negative 2 and what else? Positive 3. And that's it, right? Okay. What do you want to try first? 2 and 3. Close together on the number line. Okay? All right, now, I'm going to do the first one listed. Let's try that first. And I'm going to do this. I'm going to put the minus 3 here and the plus 2 here. Okay? You see what I did? All right. Now, right away, I know this can't be correct. I don't even have to do the out and the in anymore. I know it cannot be correct because if I look at that first factor, what else do they have in common? A 3. So that means I could factor out a 3, right? So that means I could say 3 times x minus 1. And then what else do you see here?
2.
A 2. So I can factor out a what? A 2. But I want you to notice something. What's 3 times 2?
6.
6. So that means that my GCF should be a what? A 6. But is it? No. What's the GCF here?
1.
It's a 1. So here's what you got to think of now. So if the GCF is 1, okay? If the GCF is 1, and you're trying to put numbers into your parentheses, into your factors, make sure that they have nothing in common. Because they have something in common, that means that you could have taken that out. So what could I have taken out here? A 3, which means that all these are divisible by 3. But are they?
No.
Not the 5. What could I take out here? A 2, which means all these are divisible by 2. But are they? No. Okay, so I know right away I could not have used that one. So instead of putting the negative 3 in the first parentheses, put the 1 in the first parentheses. Positive 2 instead. So let's say 3x plus 2 and then 2x minus 3. All right, so 3x plus 2 times 2x minus 3. Now let's check. Let's check. What's 3x times 2x? 6x squared. So that takes care of the f. Let's go to the L, the last. What's a positive 2 times a negative 3? Negative 6. All right, now I need the outer and the inner to be in positive 5x. What's the outer? Negative 9x. What's the inner? 4x. What again when I add them up? Negative 5x. Is that what y'all wanted? No. I wanted a positive 5x. I'm almost there. I just got to do what? Change the signs. So that does not work. I just got to change the signs. So it's going to be 3x minus 2 times 2x plus 3. That's going to be the answer. And again, you check it. The outer is now a 9x, and the inner is now a negative 4x. And when I add them up, I get 5x. Okay? All right. Now, I want to do number 5 again, but I want to do number 5 thinking of it this way. Actually, I'm going to go back and do number 3. I'm going to do number 3. So I'm going to do number 3 again. I'm going to rewrite number 3. All right, and we go through the same process. What's the GCF? 1. Okay, so we put the 2 binomials. I know that 3n times n is going to give me 3n squared. Now the last, we said I need 2 numbers whose product was what? 4. Okay, 2, 2, negative 2, negative 2, 1, 4, negative 1, negative 4. You all agree? Okay. Now, let's do the 2 and the 2. Let's put 2 in here and 2 in here without putting any signs. That's a different way you can do this. Because remember what we did here is we put signs right away, right? All right, and then we got these signs right here. But here's another way I want you to think about this as well. It does help if you know all these different ways. Okay, now, what is the outer? 6n. What's the inner? 2n. All right, now I know that last sign's positive, right? Y'all agree? So that means that these signs in here have to be the same or different? Huh? Same, right? Because the only way you can get a product that's positive is they're both negative or both what? Positive. All right, so that means I'm going to have to add these up then. If they're both positive, both the same sign, you got to add them up. What's 6n plus 2n? 8n. But the signs have to be the middle signs. That means they both have to be what? Negative. All right, now think about this. In order for the negative 2n to be negative, then this has to be what? Negative. In order for the outer to be negative, then this has to be what? Negative. That's one way of dealing with it. Okay, let's look at, huh?
Is it a name for that?
No, it's just still trial and error, but you're just using, all we're doing here is just using the fact that the last sign's negative. I'm sorry, the last sign's positive. So both of these signs have to be the same. In order for these to be the same sign, it has to take the middle sign. So they both have to be negative.
So we should be able to do either one of those
Yeah.
with any kind of problem.
Yep. So if we go back to number 5 that we did, number 5, I'm going to do 5 star here. I'm going to read number 5. So this time we had 6x squared plus 5x minus 6. GCF is 1. So I'm going to direct it to the two binomials. And remember FOIL, so trial and error. So there's only one possibility, there are several possibilities for 6x squared, but we tried 3x and what else? 2x. Okay. Now, the last. I need two terms whose product is a negative 6, right? So we said 2 times negative 3, negative 2 times a positive 3, 1 times a negative 6, negative 1 times a positive 6. But we know that we want to try what first? 3 and 2. But I don't want to put the signs in just yet. I don't want to use those signs just yet. I do want to put the 2 and the 3. I know that I cannot put the 3 here. And I know I cannot put the 2 here. Because if I put the 3 here, that means I can factor out a 3, which means that they're all divisible by what? 3, and they're not. So that means I have to put the 2 here and the 3 there. Notice I didn't put any signs yet, right? Okay. Now let's do the outer. What's the outer? 9x. What's the inner? 4x. Okay, now the last sign's negative. That means these two signs right here have to be what? Different. So if they're different, you are really subtracting. If they're the same, you're doing what? Adding. So if I subtract these two, what's 9x minus 4x? 5x, right? So are those the correct, first of all, are these the correct order of the terms? Yes. I just got to make sure that the larger of these takes the middle sign. What's the larger of these? 9x. So this one has to be plus, and this one has to be what? Negative. And the only way I can get the inner to be negative is if this is what? Negative. And the outer to be positive, this is positive. And notice when we looked at our answer earlier the other way, that's what we got. Okay? This is the one I tend to use the most. What happened here was we used different, we started out with putting the signs in, right? And then we tried and it didn't work. Then we switched the signs and all that. This tends to be a little bit quicker. All right. Let's look at number 6. Number 6. So let's suppose this was our number 6. All right. 4x squared minus 4x minus 63. 4x squared minus 4x minus 63. What's the GCF? 1. It's in descending order, so I'm going to go directly to the two binomials. FOIL. Let's do the F first. There are several possibilities for 4x squared. There's 4x and 1x, 2x and 2x. What do you want to try first? 2x and 2x. Close together the number line. If that didn't work, you try 4x and 1x. Let's try 2x and 2x. All right. So that takes care of the F. Let's go to the L. So I need two terms whose product is what? Negative 63. All right. So let's try some like negative 3, positive 21, right?
Mhm.
Positive 3, negative 21. What else? 163. So 1, negative 63, negative 1, positive 63. I think there's another pair. Say it again. 9 and 7, right? So 9, negative 7, negative 9, positive 7. Okay? So I know that one of these pairs is going to have to go inside here. But which one are you going to try first?
9 and 7.
9 and 7. 9 and 7. Now look, you see how these two first terms are identical? It does not matter where you put the 9 and the 7 because they're identical. So let's put the 9 here, the 7 here without putting the signs in. Let's not worry about the signs just yet. Okay? What's the outer? 14x. What's the inner? All right. Now, know the last sign's what kind of number, though? Negative. So that means one of these is positive, one of these is negative, which means I'm really going to be subtracting them. What's 18x minus 14x? 4x, and that's what I wanted. So that means that the order is the same. The order is correct. I just got to fill in the signs now. The larger of these, and what's the larger of these? 18x takes the middle sign. So 18x has to be what? Negative. 14x has to be positive. And it makes sense because what is a negative 18x and a positive 14x? Negative 4x, and that's what you wanted. Now let's fill it in. The inner is negative. That means this has to be what?
Negative.
The outer is positive. That means that has to be positive. Okay, so there's your answer. So some of you may prefer doing it that way. It's up to you. All right, let's look at number 7. So number 7, let's suppose you had 6x cubed plus 5x squared minus 4x. So 6x cubed plus 5x squared minus 4x. All right. What's the GCF? GCF is x, right? Nothing else, just x. So I can factor out an x. And when I factor out the x, I get 6x squared plus 5x minus 4. So then you go off to the side and you see if you can factor this trinomial. 2 binomials. All right. Foil. Reverse foil. Sometimes it's called trial and error, sometimes it's called reverse foil. Okay? Let's do the F first. Give me 2 terms whose product is 6x squared. What are you going to try? 3x and 2x, okay? Now once you do the F, we go to the last. I need 2 numbers, two terms whose product this time is what? Negative 4. All right, let's think about that. Well, remember negative, I need the product to be negative, so there's a negative 2 and a positive 2. There is a negative 1 and a positive 4. There's a positive 1 and a what? Negative 4. So one of these is going to work. Now, remember we said that we'll try the numbers close together in the number line. According to these, which ones are close together in the number line? Negative 2 and 2, right? But I know I can't use it. Did y'all see that?
Mhm.
Why do you think you can't use 2 and 2?
They have Comma.
Goes right here. If you put a 2 here, that means you can factor out a what? A 2, which means all the original terms are divisible by 2, and they're not. So I can't use this. I have to use what instead? 1 and 4. Notice I didn't say -1, -4, right? I just said 1 and 4. But I know what though? Huh?
One has to be positive and the other.
Yeah, that's true. But even before then, I know that I can't put something somewhere. I cannot put the 4 here. Because then I could factor out a what? A 2. So that means I got to put the 4 where? With the 3 and the 1 with the 2x. Notice I didn't put the signs in, but I do know that the signs have to be different, right? So rather than guessing like we did earlier, let's just look at the outer. What's the outer? The outer is what? 3x. What's the inner? What's the inner? 8x. Y'all want to keep saying 6. The last sign's negative, so that means one of these is going to be positive, one of these is going to be what? Negatives. So since that's the case, let's subtract them now instead of adding. What is 3x from 8x? 5x. So that's what I want. So the terms are in the correct order. I just got to figure out the sign. The larger of these, and the larger of these is 8x. It is going to have what sign though? Positive, the middle sign. So 8x is going to be positive, 3x has to be what? Negative. And and remember 8x is the inner part, so in order for that to occur, the 4 has to be what? Positive, and the last has to be negative. All right, and when I do add them up now, I do get a positive 5x. But that's not the answer though. What is the answer? The GCF was x, so you got to say x times 3x plus 4 times 2x minus 1. Okay. All right, we're going to do one more, and then we'll do a little bit, a few more with this next class period. But we're also going to talk about the AC method. So that's another way of factoring these. Now, the AC method, I'm going to write this down. The AC method involves grouping. So we spent some time on factoring by grouping, remember? All right, so we do the AC method. Next class period is going to involve grouping. But let's look at number 8. Number 8, we're going to do trial and error or reverse FOIL. Just like I've been doing. So 5x squared minus 9xy plus 4y squared. So 5x squared minus 9xy plus 4y squared. What's the GCF? 1. But this time knows there are 2 variables, right? Okay. So go directly to the binomials. FOIL. The first part's easy. What's that going to be? Because 5 is prime, so what's it going to be? 5x and x, right? All right. Now, let's do the last. So I need the product to be 4y squared, correct? So there's only a couple of possibilities. There's 2y and 2y. 1y, 4y. But don't forget the negatives as well, right? Negative 2y, negative 2y, negative 1y, negative 4y. Now, think. The last sign's negative. The last sign's positive. That means these signs are what? The same. So I know right away. I don't have to do it like I did this one right here. Like I did these. I know right away they both have to be what? The middle sign. The middle sign. They both have to be negative. And what do you want to try first? The 4 and the 1 or the 2 and the 2? 2 and the 2. All right. So we're going to say 2y though, right? All right, now I've got to check. What's 5x times x? 5x squared. Let's go to the last. What's a negative 2y times a negative 2y? Positive 4y squared. What's the outer? Negative 10xy, right? Negative 10xy, right? What's the inner? What do I get, though? Negative 12xy. Is that what I wanted? No. So that means you got to try what? 1 and 4. Huh? What now? Why not? Why can't you use the 4 and the 1? I got to know why. You got to give me a reason why you can't use the 4 and the 1. What makes you think you can't use the 4 and the 1? Put what? I mean, factor out, but what? Yeah. So they would have nothing. Okay. Yeah. So you're talking about having the y here and taking out factor 1. That's a GCF. The GCF is 1, which is what this is. So let's put and they're both still negative, right? Let's put the y here and the 4y here. See what happens, okay? Trial and error. Reverse FOIL. Don't say that's the answer without checking. Let's check the outer. What's the outer?
Negative xy.
Negative 20xy. What's the inner? Negative 1xy. What do I get? Is that what you wanted? No. So that didn't work. So do what then? Now don't say it's prime because you still have some things you can try. Switch the y and the 4y instead. So let's do that. So let's say 5x minus 4y times x minus y. Okay? All right, let's check the outer and the inner. What's the outer? Negative 5xy. What's the inner? Negative 4xy. What do I get when I add them up? And there's your answer. So that's the one that works. So this is your answer. All right, so notice reverse FOIL. You just got to practice. The more you practice with this, the better you become. So you can't just watch and think, oh, I got this. No, you don't. You got to practice. Okay? So I gave you 2 worksheets, so that's what you're going to practice on. Now, I don't know if any of them are prime. I haven't, maybe, let's see.